Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here recording episode 126, and today we will be discussing some tips for public speaking and also public speaking to a more global audience or a cross-cultural audience. So I think there's going to be a lot of gems in here for all of you listening today, whether you want to improve your public speaking skills or you're going to give a talk to a very multicultural audience. So we'll give you some tips, some tricks, and have some laughs along the way, I'm sure, knowing Jared. So without further ado, my buddy Jared, what's going on, Jared?
This is a no-laugh podcast. This is serious stuff we're teaching here. We are providing a service for the nation, for the world. And you guys should be thanking us. You can thank us. Spread a little love. 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher is how you thank us. And we would appreciate that very much. You can also spread a little love. Follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. I figured out, well, we don't have to get into that. That's, why am I doing this? Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. It's a great place to go if you want to find old episodes, or you could just follow us, or subscribe, on any of your favorite pod-esque sites. Or you can also email us, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Spread a little love. Now, I assume we're doing this topic because I assume this topic was your idea, and I assume it came to you because in the near future you're going to have to be doing some speeches, giving some speeches to what I would assume, at least maybe not to the people you're speaking to, but in your head would be considered I guess not a multicultural crowd, but a different crowd, a different culture of people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. You're also there because you're teaching, and you started teaching. You've taught for a couple days now. How's it been going?
Yes. It's been going good, man. I was well aware that my students would be a little shy in the beginning, which has been true. But so my classes, it's kind of long. So on my Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I teach basically a 45-minute chunk, then we have a little break, another 45-minute chunk, then we have a longer break, then one more 45-minute chunk.
Damn.
So
is this the longest lecture or the longest class you've ever taught?
Let's see, how many
continuous? Let's put it that way, sort of like semester classes.
Actually, no. I taught longer lessons. Now it's becoming last summer, but the summer of 2018, I was fortunate enough to be a lecturer at Jackson College, which was a great place to teach. And there, the lessons were
applied, and you had a very good resume. They were fortunate to have you.
Well, thank you. I think it was fortunate both ways. But anyways. I think there I taught for, let's see, I'm trying to think how many minutes it would have been. It was over 2 hours.
Okay. No breaks.
Whereas this, I gave the students a little 5-minute break in the middle of it, just because 2 hours of sitting is a long time. But it's a long chunk of time. But the nice thing is, in the Czech Republic, occasionally, because I only taught a 45-minute lesson, now in theory I have 3 of those for one lesson. I don't feel nearly as rushed. Mm-hmm. So when there have been long silences while I teach, I just let them be quiet for a minute. And if they're quiet for quite a long time, then I say, okay, discuss with a partner. And then I know, like, okay, if you've discussed with a partner, you should have something to say, and then I'm going to pick someone and call on you. I don't enjoy doing that, but the whole point of participation is to contribute to the class.
Has it been you haven't? It's a hard sample size to really judge this off of, but at least in your initial classes, I assume in having trouble having people participate.
Well, so the issue has been that there have been maybe 4 or 5 students in each class who they're very clearly very confident in their English abilities,
those people
and so they're very excited.
We all had those classmates in school that always were like had their hand up first every time, and it's just like, ugh.
But I'll tell you this though, the nice thing is, they make our job easier on one hand, but on the other hand, you can't always just go to those students.
That's true.
The other thing is too that I've noticed is that. It's not the same as in the States or even in the Czech Republic where those kids would have their hands up immediately. These students will wait. They'll literally look around the classroom and then they'll put their hands up.
They'll be like, no one? Really? Am I going to do this again?
Right, exactly. And one of the students yesterday actually had this look on their face like, all right, guys, I guess I'll do it again. So
it's like, you're letting me down at this point.
Right. But the nice thing about it has been, so I'm teaching a course on English teaching methodology. So I get to nerd out for 2 hours and 15 minutes, 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, depending on my schedule, about what makes a good language learner and a good language teacher. And so it's been a lot of fun. We've been discussing a couple theories in my classes. I'll give you a little brief overview, Jared, not to bore you to sleep, but we've been talking about
you betcha
3 types of language views, which are functional view of language, a structural view, and the interactional view. And so these all have obviously very different meanings. So the structural is basically language can be looked at under a microscope at the structural level. So by looking at grammar, by looking at phonology, so the sounds of language, and by looking at morphology, which are like the sounds connected with the meanings of language. Then you have, you have a structural, then you have functional, so how language is used, right? The functions of language. So like suggesting things, giving advice, apologizing, those are all types of functional language. And the last one then is the interactional view of language, which is basically we use language to build relationships and connect with people. So it's been really fun talking to the students about these different views of language and then these theories. And the 4 theories we've been discussing have been, let's see if I can remember these now. So the 4 theories have been the behaviorist theory, which comes from psychology, but in the language context, it basically means that language in some ways is kind of learned like a set of behaviors. And so what this led to, Jared, was the teaching of what we call the audiolingual method, which is basically listen and repeat, which is really great for, I would say, basic language learning, like just for exposure to language. But it's not great because a big flaw in this theory is there's no connection to meaning, really, right? Because I could have you repeat the word pizza a million times, but if you don't know that pizza is a food and it's delicious, you're not going to be able to use it in a sentence, right?
Right.
So then there was another theory in reaction to that called the cognitive theory, which is basically that learners should be able to think and create new sentences, and it was kind of a reaction to this behaviorist theory. Then after that, you have the constructivist theory. John Dewey is an important figure for this, and basically...
Dewey.
Right, and basically, the constructivist theory talks about how our knowledge is built upon our own experiences and knowledge we had previous knowledge, prior knowledge. So, and then the last one is called the socio-constructivist theory, which is all about, yes, you are able to learn based on your previous knowledge, your prior knowledge, but you need a teacher to help you get to the next step or the next level. And they call that the zone of proximal development. So sorry for throwing out all the jargony terms for you, Jared.
Sounds like
that's what we've been talking about in class.
45-minute sessions.
Right. But the thing that's been fun about it, Jared, sorry to go on and on,
please,
has been the fact that these are kind of difficult and abstract concepts, but I think the students are starting to wrap their heads around them. And I will tell you,
how can
Jared,
you tell so quickly?
Well, because I ask them questions. I ask them, okay, give me examples, things like this. And if they can correctly do that, usually okay, they're starting to understand these theories and these views of language. And I will tell you, Jared, this is actually what led me to this idea of public speaking, is the fact that I've already noticed as a teacher here in China, I'm a different public speaker than I am when I was in the Czech Republic and when I was in the United States.
Oh, how
so?
So
because
am I ruining it too early?
No, you're not. I think this will be a good teaser for the main segment of the episode. And what I've noticed is I sat in on a class last Friday about Chinese culture, which was awesome. And I got to see how Chinese teachers, or at least how one Chinese teacher teaches her classes. And she used a lot of humor to engage the students. And in the Czech Republic, I tried this a little bit, but a lot of times my jokes would go over the students' heads, or it was just, I think Czech humor is different than American humor, right? Mm-hmm. And so
you can only make so many jokes about death and sadness.
Exactly. So basically, I tried to keep this in mind. when I was teaching. And so like one thing that happened my first day of teaching was I would shut the door because I talk kind of loud and I didn't want to disrupt. There are a lot of students in the other classrooms studying if it's empty or there are lectures going on. So I would try to shut the door, and I would think the door would be shut, and then I'd be teaching, and then a couple minutes later the door would like creak open. So I'd be like, oh, it looks like the ghost wants to learn from our lesson again today, or something like that. And the students were cracking up. So
they're just flattering you. That's not funny.
Maybe, but I think it's important here. And I've had a couple other friends who have taught in China, in Vietnam, in Taiwan, where else? South Korea. And they all have said that if you have a good sense of humor and you can bring that out in your teaching, students really respond well to it. So I tried to keep that in mind.
That was actually something I was going to ask you about with speech giving too. So it's interesting to hear that, which we'll get to that then too. But
we will.
So do you think you kind of suppress just like even corny small? I don't mean to insult your joke again. You even you tended to suppress jokes like that more often in Czech Republic.
In the Czech Republic, I think I don't know. I stepped in the classroom and we definitely had a lot of fun. But the jokes came more from the students than from me, and I think I was trying to be like a very serious, good example.
Oh, okay.
Whereas,
I gotcha.
whereas here, I don't want to be that stuffy, boring professor. I think it's also different that I'm teaching at a university here.
I was about to say, it probably helps that they're older too, so you're less of like a babysitter. You know, not that you really were babysitting them, but just the older they get the students, the less sort of management you have to have of the actual people.
Exactly. And I will say this. I am very confident that my students here in China, when I give them assignments, they will do them. I wasn't always so confident in the States and occasionally in the Czech Republic.
Slipping on gator piss.
So there's also that too. So I think that also opens up, if I'm not worried about them getting work done, I think that opens up an opportunity to also have a bit more fun. You know what I mean? Because I don't have to be so conscious of, I know we'll finish everything we need to finish because the students seem very eager to learn. And I think a lot of them are very excited. I'm the first foreign teacher to teach methodology at my university here. So I think some of them are also excited about that. And I am too. So yeah, but it's been a fun first week of teaching.
That's good.
Yeah.
All I was going to say was this is an early untranslatable. You might say that you don't have to clock your students as much, and it frees up more time for doing activities and interacting. I learned from my girlfriend recently, a couple of weeks ago, clocking. Have you heard of that phrase before? Don't clock me. It means like, hey, did you do this? Or hey, are you gonna make sure you get that done? Or did you get that done? It's like clocking someone. I was like, I like that.
See, when I hear
add it into my repertoire.
Okay, I like that. When I hear clock, I think of if you got you got clocked. Yeah, you get.
But this is more clocking. Oh, I guess clocking someone. You say you got clocked. You don't really say I don't know. Also, clocked sounds so like 1960s.
Clock you. Yeah. It does.
Why I oughta.
Right. Very true. Very true. I like that though. Don't clock me.
Also, though, so teaching's good. All right, I don't want to focus too much on teaching because we'll talk about it over time. I also want to know how the living part has been. Almost a little bit more than the teaching. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, good. I mean, I did some exploring last night in the kind of there's a university kind of shopping district that's about not really a mile but close to a mile from where I live, and so I went there and actually came across walking. I've been walking. I've been averaging over 1,500 steps.
Wow.
Sorry, 15,000. Sorry, 15,000 steps.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, 15,000 steps a day. So feeling lean, mean, and ready to go, Jared. That's for sure. But last night it was fun because I was walking around and I came across a pizza place, and so I thought, you know what? I've been here for a week. I'm going to treat myself and get some pizza. So I got the American sausage pizza. I used my Google Translate app because it was all in Chinese characters. A lot of places on the menus, they have pictures. So I'll just point at the picture and I'll say jigo, which is Chinese for this, right?
Okay.
Whereas this place, it didn't. So thankfully, my Google Translate app finally worked because I was looking at it and I was like, well, I could just take a risk and order a random thing and hope it's good. But I was like, I really hope this Google Translate app will work.
It's a big risk.
Right. And they put some interesting things on pizza here. So I'm glad I was able. Yeah. But Jared, what do you think would be on an American sausage pizza? What are the toppings?
I assume it's like a ground beef kind of thing, probably. Like a hamburger meat. No.
Nope.
American
They had
pizza.
slices of sausage that were like a very thick piece of pepperoni. I mean, it was just thinly cut sausage.
And there was other stuff, though. Other meats?
Yes. No other meats.
Okay.
No other meats.
And no other meats?
No other meats.
Pineapple?
Nope. I think they do have a Hawaiian pizza. Didn't get that one, but they have a Hawaiian pizza.
I mean, Hawaii's in America, just to be clear.
Right.
I have no idea where mushrooms. I don't know.
Nope. Okay,
it was weird. It's something weird, I assume.
Yeah. So
I don't even know where to begin guessing.
Right. So the American.
Broccoli.
Nope. That would have been well. I don't know how I would feel about broccoli. I love broccoli, but I'm not sure how I'd feel about broccoli and pizza.
I'm with you on that.
So it was sausage, corn. I
should have thought of the corn one.
Green peppers, and onions. I think that was everything. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, other than the corn, that's all right. That's pretty standard.
And red peppers as well. It was good. It was really good.
Other than the corn, that's pretty standard. I could do without the corn on my pizza probably, but I wouldn't hate it. It doesn't really taste like much.
Right. It was
How's
tasty.
the sauce and cheese application?
So there wasn't much sauce, but I will tell you, I'm pretty sure this was actual tomato sauce because I've been told by some of my colleagues here that a lot of times if you go to pizza places, it'll be ketchup as pizza sauce. But I'm pretty sure this was tomato sauce. Yeah.
Okay.
But the funny thing though, Jared, so I order my pizza, I sit down and I'm waiting for it, and the woman behind the counter brings a plate first, and then she hands me this little package with these Chinese characters on it, and I'm like, are these like wipes for afterwards to like wipe my hands? What is this? I open it, and guess what it was?
A condom.
Plastic, you're not too far off. Plastic gloves for your hands to wear while you eat the pizza.
Hand condoms. That's what I call them. What are you talking about?
That's right. That's right. So basically,
that's hilarious.
And I should have known because there was a Chinese couple sitting next to me and they both were wearing these gloves while they were eating their pizza. And the American in me died inside a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you're using, but I was like, you know what? I'm in China. So I did it halfway, Jared. I put one glove on my right hand, and I was eating the pizza with that hand. I was scooping it with the spatula with my left hand.
I would love for them to experience barbecue ribs.
Right?
In American style, a.k.a. no gloves.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I had pork ribs a couple days ago at this really good Chinese restaurant.
Right, they do.
And they actually cut them in small pieces, including the bone. So the bone is in them, but they're these tiny pieces, and then you pick them up with chopsticks and eat them.
So you rip it off the bone.
You chew it and you rip off the bone or spit it out. Yeah.
Why would they leave the bone on there? Just take it off the bone.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Chinese culinary arts yet to give you an answer, Jared. But,
I guess it probably has something to do with the cooking of it. Okay. Obviously the language barrier has been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But you go to and from school, you order food by saying jigga. Has it really been a real point of contention at any point? I don't mean like an arguing point of contention, but like a language. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you communication breakdown due to language barriers?
Not yet, because I haven't had to do too much other than ordering food, and that's it. I haven't gotten lost yet. Knock on wood. So that's.
Are you afraid?
Are
you playing it safe? Too safe?
I would say I play it safe, but I also. The problem is that everything is so far apart here in China as well.
Right.
And I don't have a bike yet because I don't have my Chinese bank account set up yet, so I can't use any of the bike share apps.
Okay.
So I really can only go with what is walking distance.
But you still have money, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all cash, but yeah.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to get the bank account? You told me this already, didn't you?
Well, I believe you have to get your residency permit first.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still waiting on that. So I had the medical check last week, and now it's just taking all the documents to the office to get the paperwork done.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you're doing well, and I don't know. I want you to explore, and I want you to meet people. I want to hear what that's like.
That's the plan. I'll let you know. Trust me.
I know I'm putting a lot on you. You haven't been there that long.
I've only been here a week. But
impatient, and I'm very curious to know what like social, like what nightlife is like and stuff like that.
Sure. I will say this though, Jared. I try to walk home from school a different route every day just to see new stuff, find new restaurants and other stuff like that. Also, I'm a mile walk to school, so there's a couple different ways I can go, which is kind of cool. But I found out 2 days ago, if I come in on the east gate of my apartment complex, there is a building where they have a foosball table. I forget what the game is called, but it's basically Chinese checkers, and they have a ping pong table. Yes. So I'm hoping to go in there eventually and play some ping pong.
You purposely brought your legit racket, right? What do you call it? Paddle?
I didn't, because I want to buy one while I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I figured that would be a cool thing to get while I'm here.
Is there do you have to is there some sort of finessing to not finessing, like going behind people, but is it a struggle to find like a good one, or do you know what sort of good brand that you would want that you maybe can't even get in the US?
Well, so this was kind of the thing that was a little stupid on my part, is that basically all the good brands you can get everywhere in the world. So really it doesn't make much. I could have bought it in the States. I don't know if it'll be any cheaper here than in the States. I'm not sure. But I'm trying to find a Chinese brand, because a lot of the other brands there's two brands that I like that are German. Donek and Yola are
German. Sounds someone like you.
Right. Right. But so I'm going to try to find a Chinese brand. But I think the funny thing is, I think the brand, it's called Butterfly, but I'm pretty sure it's a Chinese brand. But you can also buy all that stuff in the U.S.
Okay, but the one you get in China will probably have like characters on it and stuff.
Probably, yeah. I hope so.
That'll be a cool, nice little touch.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I'm hoping. I only have one student so far. I've taught 2 classes, and in those 2 classes, I have over 40 students in each class. I only have one student that I know of that plays table tennis. Now I wonder if
us stereotyping.
Well, it could be, but I know for a fact that at least in China, usually they have like gym classes and they play in gym class. So I'm sure most of them probably know how to play, but maybe one only plays seriously. So I'm hoping to get into contact with that student and see if. Now the thing that I also have observed so far is that in my teaching building, there's actually like 4 or 5 tables spread out throughout my building. Just where people can hit around during like breaks, which is pretty cool. But I want to find a place where like I can go and actually like maybe get some training and play some really good players, so I can improve.
A table tennis dojo.
Exactly. So we'll see.
You're gonna have a whole side hustle going on. Like, have you seen Rounders, the movie Rounders?
I haven't. No.
It's just about like underground gambling and stuff. But you're gonna be going like these shady like ping pong places, like 3 a.m.
Right. Well, that's
why are you
exactly
smoking cigarettes all of a sudden.
Right. That's like the movie Balls of Fury. That's kind of what happens.
Yes. Yeah, that's an even better example. Yeah.
Right. What I'll have to do is start playing them right-handed, so they think I'm terrible.
Why do you love to do that? Just beat everyone. I mean, not that you can't just beat everyone. You always love to play these tricky little games with people.
I do.
You're you're a sicko.
because Jared, it makes it more challenging for me, and I think it evens out the playing field.
Doesn't it feel good to win?
Not if you smoke somebody. Come on, Jared.
You're making me get all negative, and you know what we should be doing.
I will say this.
Love.
We will. Let me just add one last thing though.
I realize I hope
I hope you make this a clip, and I hope you send this to Don. Okay. When I'm back stateside, just to give some context to our listeners, Don and I got into a heated debate when he came to visit me in Prague with Jared. And Don was pretty confident he could beat me in table tennis. So I will say this, Jared. I will play Don full on, using all my crazy serves and everything, just to put him in his place. Now, I hope with me saying this, who knows, maybe I'll get beat, but I have a good feeling. I'm pretty confident in my abilities. So there you go. Send that to Don. Let him know.
All right. The challenge has been set.
I'll come to Jinan China, Don, and I will take you down in my home place right now. But, Jared, let's spread a little love.
Spread a little love. Oh, man. All right. Sorry, I'm writing down to save that. Well, my love spreading, of course, because it's me, is mixed with some negativity. As you know, as many people know, not everyone around the world that listen to this podcast, because this is not just an American podcast, we're worldwide. There have been a lot of shootings in the U.S. Consistently, there have been, and there are. And recently, there was one in El Paso at a Walmart. And 20 people were killed in that one? That's crazy.
I'm not surprised.
Sorry, so I didn't realize it was that many. Anyway, Walmart recently announced it will reduce the gun and ammunition sales 1 month after more than 20 people were killed in a mass shooting at Walmart in El Paso, Texas. Walmart also pressured Congress to enact gun safety measures. The company, America's largest retailer, said it will stop selling handgun ammunition and short-barrel rifle ammunition, such as the .223 caliber and 5.56 caliber, that can also be used on assault-style weapons after selling all of its current inventory.
That's still kind of ironic.
They're still a company.
They're still making that money, yeah.
Walmart will also stop selling handguns in Alaska, the only state where it still sells handguns. Walmart will request that customers no longer openly carry guns into the 4,700 U.S. stores or its Sam's Clubs, Walmart-owned Sam's Club stores in states that allow open carry. It's clear to us that the status quo is unacceptable, Walmart CEO Doug McMillon said in a memo to employees on Tuesday. However, Walmart will continue to sell long barrel deer rifle and shotguns and much of the ammunition for those guns. The company sells guns in about 3,900 stores. Walmart will also continue to allow concealed carry by customers with permits in its stores. All right, well, listen, baby steps.
Yep, I was just going to say baby steps. It's a step in the right direction.
In addition to that, one of my favorite grocery stores that I haven't been to because I don't live close to one anymore, but it used to be my favorite when I used to live close to one, Kroger, has asked customers to not openly carry firearms in stores. Kroger followed Walmart. They were after Walmart, but I don't know. I hate that because it makes it seem like, Kroger was like, Walmart did it, so we're going to do it too.
Right.
Maybe they thought of it on their own and that Walmart just happened to do it first. I don't know. I just hate that wording because anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Kroger followed Walmart in asking customers not to display their firearm in stores located in open carry states, becoming the last big chain to reshape its business around gun reform amid a spat of mass shootings. And have you heard about people showing up at stores? People meaning, white dudes showing up at stores,
right?
With their guns on their back or openly carrying guns to test
stupid.
Their Second Amendment right.
Right. And see here's the thing, Jared. The whole argument and debate with the Second Amendment, I think it's been really changed throughout time, and I think it's been changed. Like the wording of it has been interpreted and, dare I say, even slightly bastardized to the point where people think that it is, I'm pretty sure it says a militia has the right to bear arms. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but I'm pretty sure that's what it says. I don't think it was initially written for individuals to have, these assault-style weapons. Back in the day, when all of these laws were written, it's not like they had assault-style weapons. You had a single-loading musket that, would take quite a bit of time if you wanted to commit a mass shooting with a musket.
I have the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment. Another one that's gotten bastardized these days is the First Amendment as well.
Freedom of speech, you mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that one gets bastardized a lot too. To where whenever someone has like complaints about some ridiculous shit that someone says, people will be like, "Well, it's my right to say it." It's like, yeah, you're not getting arrested. People just don't like it. People can still not like it.
Exactly. That's great though in terms of Walmart and Kroger. That's awesome.
Yeah. Especially a company like Walmart that's so openly like considered to be like marketed towards like middle America, sort of. I hate to say like the quote unquote mouth breather. But like they're just they have that stereotype to them, you know, and that's sort of usually like those people that are just usually contributed with this sort of lifestyle, and I think it's Kroger too, but especially Walmart where that it's a big business selling guns as well. Like it is a big step, even though it's still sort of like a partial step. It is still a big step.
Absolutely. Well, I have a shout out as well, Jared. I actually have a couple of them. And my first one is, for once Florida man does something good. I don't know if you've heard about this, Jared, but a Florida man has bought 100 plus generators to send to the Bahamas in lieu of the hurricane that's happening right now.
Wow.
So what's interesting is, so the way this whole story started is this other gentleman was in Costco buying a generator for himself. And these generators cost $450 a piece. So he said, and I quote, "Was just in Costco off Collins getting a generator at $450 each, and this guy right here is purchasing over 100 generators and food to send to the Bahamas. All I could do is shake his hand and thank him. There are still good people in this world." And this post, Jared, that this guy shared, it was then shared 17,000 times in the next 3 hours. And the fund, and now I will say this, it wasn't just this guy who is Bruce Wayne status, just baller millionaire buying all these generators. Right. It was actually made possible through a fund on GoFundMe called the Errol Thurston Bahamas Hurricane Relief Fund. So I think it's really great that he is sending these generators and food and help to all the people in the Bahamas right now, because they are in dire need of what's happening with the hurricane right now. So I think that's great. That's awesome. And we send him and everyone who contributed to the Earl Thurston Bahamas Hurricane Fund lots of love.
Spread a little love. Also, I really like that name, Earl Thurston. That's a powerful name.
Absolutely.
Do you have any more shout-outs?
I do. This one, Jared, is a shout-out / a little bit of a discussion. So I don't know if you've heard about this, Jared, but Michigan has become the first state to ban flavored e-cigarettes.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw a headline, but I didn't think much of it. Well, I did think much of it. I just didn't know what to think. Let me put it that way.
Right. And I kind of don't as well, because I have quite a few friends who have those like big vape thingies that, and they smell like donuts and cotton candy, and it smells great. But the reason why they have done this is because they say that a lot of these flavors are kind of marketed towards younger people. And there have been some
that I agree with. Now I'm going to sound like the oldest man ever as I say this. Teenagers and like college kids' obsession with Juul is out of this world. It's crazy. It's a big deal, and for some reason, I like the fact that there's nicotine in it just doesn't come up. I don't understand how that never comes up, but yeah, people love these things, and it is sort of like it's sort of like the modern day it does sort of feel like to me sometimes like the modern day like cigarette commercials from like the 50s or 40s or something like that. And it seems ridiculous to me, like people's obsession, and I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Right. I don't either.
And it is, and it is definitely like, I don't know what the marketing really looks like, but I've only seen kids like I don't know. I mean, I don't know this many kids at this age, but just what I see in the world, it seems like kids like under like 22 or like people that are like legitimately trying to quit cigarettes, or like the two. like groups of people that use it.
Right. But the issue too with these different, using a vape or a Juul is that with these, the whole point of these were, supposed to be like healthier than cigarettes, right?
Right.
But if you're puffing on a vape all day or a Juul all day, and especially if it's like a flavor and like most people nowadays aren't allowed to smoke cigarettes in their apartment, right? Mm-hmm. But if you smoke a vape or you hit a vape,
smoke a vape. I think I don't think that works.
Yeah, that's not how that works. Your vape is broken, I think, if you're smoking it. But anyways, I know a lot of people who, like a guy I met in DC, actually, he told me like that's the problem with his Juul is he just hits it all the time.
Yes.
And it becomes, I think, over time, way worse than cigarettes. And there was actually a story about a teenager who had a Juul and had a collapsed lung. And was using it for like maybe a year or so. But I'm not sure how I feel about this either. I just like the fact that they are, at least it seems like they're trying to do some good for a lot of young people by banning this. But the on the flip side of this, though, Jared, is that some people have said that this will cause like black market vape, like a black market people selling vapes, and then you don't know if they're like legit. I don't really know. But I think it's good that they're at least trying to, do something to help younger people. I'm not sure how effective it will be. I think the biggest thing is to try to educate people, but obviously that doesn't always work either. So who knows?
And I don't think all the information is there yet. Like, I think it's still too new to have like the sort of years of data and science that we have on cigarettes, for example.
Right. I would agree.
But I think it is probably safe to say that it's not just like harmless. It's not just like, oh no, it's just some water vapors in and out, no big deal, and it's just like it's just like drinking water and spitting it out, for example.
Exactly,
like I think it's safe to say that there's probably some sort of long-term effects, and maybe they're much better than cigarettes, sure, but that doesn't mean there's not something happening there.
Right. Absolutely, I would agree.
That was a good discussion, Chad.
Thank you. But yeah, so hopefully though this is a step in the right direction. I'm not really sure, but at least I guess it's better for them to try than just to stand by and do nothing. My last shout out goes out to our northern brothers and sisters in Canada, because the Yukon and First Nations government have approved the Peel Watershed Regional Land Use Plan, which basically will have about 83% of the watershed become conservation areas. So there was talk of them not doing this, and they have passed this. I don't know if you call it a law or a plan or a bill or whatever, but I think it's really great that they are trying to conserve this watershed, because there are six major rivers on this watershed, Jared, and it's really great because it'll also save a lot of wildlife. And because it will be a conservation area, there will be no industrial land use dispositions like mining, and there won't be any surface access such as like building roads and stuff. So basically it'll be this beautiful land that can stay natural and how it should be.
Great. I think it's important to have protected land. The U.S. has a lot of it, but it's definitely being threatened. That's for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's get to what this whole thing is about here. By the way,
let's do it.
These untranslatables. Now I have a few. Maybe I'll do them all. Maybe I won't. We shall see.
Sounds good.
I'll start with a Spanish one. So as I mentioned, no more false identidad. I started watching some other show in Spanish. I don't remember what it's called. I'm sort of indifferent to it, but my girlfriend seems to like it. That has nothing to do with my untranslatable. Parar bolas.
What does that mean?
Parking balls.
Oh, okay.
No me estás parando bolas. You're not parking balls for me.
So it's like you're not doing it for me?
What does that mean?
I knew you were going to ask that. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, because you have no idea.
Right. It's like, is it like you're not explaining something clearly?
No, but say
No.
you were trying to explain something to me, and I kept telling you, I don't get it, and you're like, no, you should get it. You're not parking balls for me.
So,
and I'm like, huh?
Okay. So it's like you should be able to understand this.
No. You're not paying attention.
Oh, you're not paying attention. Oh, I like that one. Okay. You're not paying attention. Okay. So I have
Parking
I have
balls.
2 untranslatables for you today. And both of them are Chinese, and they are also Chengyu, which is what I mentioned on our last episode, basically a 4-character phrase in Chinese. And a lot of them come from, like, it's ancient Chinese. Not all of it is, but a lot of them are still used in speech. And what's really cool, though, Jared, is there's this gentleman named Carl Jean Fordham who has a blog with a bunch of them. So if you want to read up on these, you can check that out. But the interesting thing about this, though, Jared, is he also has the Baidu hits, which is like Chinese Google, and the Google hits of these Chengyu phrases. So I think it's really awesome. And then he has an explanation, a translation, and for some of these, when applicable, a similar English translation or similar English untranslatable. Okay. So it's a really cool website. I'm not going to post it because then it'll give away all my thunder. But if people are curious
you'll have no
enough,
reason to listen to this podcast. Everyone.
Exactly. But my first one for you, Jared, is Tuo Ying Er Chu, which literally means the grain sheds its husk and comes forth.
This is 4 characters and has all that meaning behind it.
Yep. Well, so Jared, if you heard, there were kind of 4 syllables.
Grain, sheds,
ying,
character,
er
husk.
chu. So the grain sheds its husk and comes forth.
Okay. It's like you grow up and you grow into your own, like you grow up to be a fine young adult.
No? Okay. Kind of.
Like you become comfortable in your own skin?
No, not quite. I would say, how can
you have tough skin, thick skin?
No, I would say it has to do more with talent.
You become a master of something.
I'll give that one to you. I would say it's...
okay.
I would say it's to expose your full talent. So, for example, I should have used myself playing table tennis as an example, right? So basically, you know,
do you need to redo your what do you call it in wrestling where they do those speeches?
Oh,
listen here, brother. I'm gonna come get you this Friday night.
right. But yeah, that would be like when you fully expose your talent.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. I have one more for you. Sorry, my hand's tangled. And it's Burmese. And it's Kwahimi Kwaki Hatauk. And it means a dog's crooked tail straightened with a bamboo rod or stick, as we'd say here in the U.S.
Dogs. Dog. Can you give me a clue? Is it like to straighten somebody out?
No. First of all, we have. We do have an untranslatable in the U.S.
Okay.
I'll just
Is it
start by saying
related to dogs?
No. It's related to injuries.
To add insult to injury?
No. A dog's crooked tail straightened with a bamboo rod. So think about it. Say, for example, let's say you and I were trying to jam together, and we couldn't figure out a way to both have a conversation and hear our instruments at the same time. But we were able to jam a little bit together and just not be able to talk while we were doing it, but we could still hear each other's instruments. And we would say that was we were straightening a dog's tail with a bamboo rod.
I'm at a loss for this one. Give it to me.
It's about temporary solutions to ever-present problems.
Okay.
So
What's the English untranslatable?
Like putting a Band-Aid on something, maybe, I would say.
Oh, I see. Okay. I like that one. All right. Putting a Band-Aid on something. All right. Nice. So my next one is also Chengyu, Chinese, and it is Yishi. Let's see here. Yishi Bui Go, which means even a little bit. This is kind of confusing, but this is a literal translation. Even a little bit not careless to attend to every thread. And we have an English untranslatable, and it has to do with a letter of the alphabet.
Could you give me the literal again?
Yes, it's kind of confusing the way this is translated, but even a little bit not careless to attend to every thread.
This is an A, B conversation, so see your way out.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Easy as...
Think about the last part, to attend to every thread.
Oh, like mind your... doing something to a T.
There we go. Very good. Very good.
I had to go through all my Rolodex of untranslatables and this big, powerful brain of mine.
Right. But yeah, that's
I
it.
like these.
So very good.
How do you call them? What do you call them? Chengmie?
Chengyu.
Chengyu. Okay.
I'm probably messing up the tones because in Chinese there's 4 tones. There's a rising, a falling. There's one that like kind of goes up and down, and there's a flat one. Eventually we'll get there, Jared, but I think it'll take some time. But I will say this. I'm getting lots of Chinese input around me, so at least I can start to hear the sounds of the language. I don't always know what they're saying, but yeah.
Yes.
But anyways, that's not our main topic. Our main topic today is public speaking and public speaking to different audiences. Before we talk about the different audiences part, Jared, I'd like to discuss just some basic tips for public speaking in general, and I'm curious about your thoughts in general about public speaking. Do you like public speaking? What tips do you have?
That's what you want to start with?
Yeah.
First of all, here's a fun fact. Do you know what the fear of speaking is called?
No.
It's called glossophobia.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's believed that... How does that make sense?
Glossary, and then phobia is a fear of things.
What does a glossary have to do? Okay. It's believed that... It's believed that up to 75% of the population has glossophobia. Interesting. See, I wouldn't say that I have a fear of giving speeches, but there's definitely a level of anxiety that's heightened over my normal level leading up to it. But like I'm good in the sense that I don't obsess over giving speeches. I don't like to and this would also be one of my tips. I don't like to over prepare. I'm not a fan of the whole reciting a full speech in the mirror, or maybe there's something to doing a run through if you have to be very serious about timing or something. But like I'm not one to like overly obsess over preparation, because I think that level of obsession doesn't help. My struggle with giving speeches is that I tend not to be too nervous beforehand, other than just usual sort of butterflies in the stomach.
Right.
I'm still not great at not talking fast. I sweat. I'm a sweater. I sweat beforehand. So that's where a lot of my sort of fear, that's how it presents itself. And I had one more that I forgot now. But and another thing is, I don't think that the whole deep breath beforehand does anything. I'm going to be totally honest with you.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like people are just patronizing me when they tell me to do that, because I was like, we all know this doesn't work.
Right.
How dare you? talk to me like
I would
this.
agree 100%, Jared, about the over-preparedness. I think that comes through trial and error for most people. Mm-hmm. I, believe it or not, well, you probably know this because a lot of my prep for the podcast is, I think some people would consider it being unprepared, but that's the way I like to do things, I guess.
Would consider it not preparing?
Right. I mean, well, the thing is for me, I always kind of try to think of, okay, what are my main points here? What am I trying to get across?
Yes.
And I'll find the way over time because I took a public speaking course in undergrad. Shout out to our buddy Nino. He was in that class with me, actually. He gave some really good speeches.
Sicilian.
He did.
Untranslatables to us. He does. I don't know if I've ever been in a class with him where he had to give speeches, but I can imagine him being very good at that. He's a very good talker and communicator.
He was a very good public speaker. It was a joy watching his speeches. But anyways, we had to do a couple different types of preparation. We had to do a couple different types of preparation for our speeches to kind of learn what our style is, right? Mm-hmm. And I had already known because I had to do a lot of different, talks and public, speaking in high school. And so I already had a decent idea of it. But the thing I had never done before was write a speech and have to basically more or less read it. And I couldn't do it. I stumbled across a bunch of words. I just couldn't. Some people, they do a great job with this. I couldn't do that. I
have two problems with that. Mm-hmm. One, it always sounds like you're reading, at least for me, and situations I've heard. It always sounds like you're reading. It never sounds like you're talking. And two, at least this is more of a personal one. The first one is not a personal one. This one is a personal one. I'm already not a great reader. Like, I'm a fine reader, not a great reader. And when you involve people staring at me, it gets way worse.
Right. Sure.
So, like, I would really be doing myself a disservice by forcing myself to read in front of a giant. Like, honestly, this might be a slight exaggeration, but it almost kind of feels like there's, let's put it this way, equal levels of fear reading in front of a giant group of people as there would be giving a speech.
I would much rather give a speech than have to read, for sure.
Yeah. And then you feel like an idiot if you mess up reading, because it's like everyone should know how to read at my age, and I'm making mistakes on simple words consistently, but I can't not concentrate on this giant group of people in front of me.
Definitely. And so, I would say that's a really good first tip, though, is don't over-prepare. And I would say try to learn what style is best for you. Some people are really good at typing out a speech and reading from it. I had some colleagues in grad school that kind of did that. It blew my mind, but they could do it. Maybe you're a bullet point person. That's kind of usually what I am, is I'll just have a couple bullet points or note cards. Some people are better just winging it.
Sometimes I'll even put like a random word that I want to remember on there.
Sure, absolutely.
Synergy. I don't know.
Photosynthesis. Just say some weird scientific sounding words.
But I honestly nowadays, because I'm in the corporate world, so like speeches are still given. They're a little different. They're usually a little less formal, but still like a formal sort of occasion in a weird way. But like the style of speech giving is more like people are obviously a little bit more welcome to interrupt throughout. Like you don't have to theoretically wait for it to end or stuff like that. Right. And whenever I do those, I've done quite a few of those things for different jobs and stuff. I literally never prepare. Like, let me be clear. Like, I'll make presentations. Right. But like my preparation is making sure my presentation is on point and just making sure that I know what's in my presentation. Right. But not knowing what I'm going to say, and just knowing what I'm going to talk about.
Right. But I think that in itself is preparing.
Yeah, I mean, I never, when I do that, I definitely feel prepared. Like, I don't feel like I'm not preparing. So that's true.
But what you're saying is you don't prepare verbatim what you're going to say.
I don't prepare verbatim what I'm going to say. I don't practice it. I don't, yeah.
Right. And I don't practice the lectures I give because I don't have the time. Like, it would be, I don't have 2 hours and 15 minutes to just, prepare exactly what I'm going to say for my next class.
It's just record.
That's true, and guitar to play and other stuff to do. But I mean, the key thing I think with public speaking is if you're afraid of it, I think that the key thing is I would agree with you that the whole take a deep breath, I think that is kind of patronizing and it doesn't really do you much.
You don't think it works either?
Not really. I mean, I
never
think,
understood that. I get the science of it, I guess, but I've never experienced that actually working in reality.
I think the thing is you just have to build up kind of a tolerance to it and do it enough to the point where you're not really afraid anymore. But I think the other thing is too, I can't really think of any instance where people aren't rooting for you. That's what I would always tell my students when I would have them give presentations. It's like, I'm here to watch you succeed. I'm not here to watch you fail. And I think when you have the mindset of these people are here to listen to me and learn from me, or they're here to support me, I think that gives you a much better headspace to present in and give a speech than, everyone's here to watch me mess up and fail. Because they're not. I can't think of any instance where people are there to watch you fail.
Or the whole thought that people are gonna laugh at me kind of thing.
Right.
Where it's like, would you do that to someone if they would you just laugh at them while they're like,
right.
But I mean, obviously you can't really rationalize fears and anxiety like that, but
right.
So can I ask you real quick? So this topic came up because you're going to have to be giving speeches soon in China. I have a few questions about this. One,
okay.
Who's the audience? Let's start with that.
It depends on the talk. The audience could be my peers, which are other English language fellows, which would be Western teachers teaching at universities in China.
So they would travel to say some sort of conference or something?
Yes.
That's happening?
And if all goes well with my residency permit and everything, hopefully I will be able to attend a conference in the capital of Mongolia at the end of September.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. And so then my audience would be that's right. Then my audience would be other English teachers, Western English teachers teaching at universities. But a lot of the teacher trainings and workshops and speeches I'll be giving will be for Chinese teachers who teach English.
So essentially, you're going to be teaching the graduate form of the people you're teaching right now.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So you choose the topics?
Yeah. I have they call
so
it
they
like
invite
a
you
workshop
to
menu.
They invite you to something and they say, hey, could you choose something to talk about? Or
Well, no. So I have a list of, I think, 6 or 7 different workshops and speeches I'm willing to give, and they pick one of those. So if they're looking for someone,
could you give some examples?
Absolutely. One of them is about teaching with music. I know that's probably a big surprise for you and our listeners, but how to use music to teach different skills. So speaking, listening, reading, writing, things like that.
Just play on our podcast.
That's right. Well, anyways,
that was actually a 2-hour and 20-minute podcast. I remember that. We had a podcast about music in the classroom, and I think that was a 2+ hour podcast.
That was a long one. That was a fun one. We might have to revisit that after I give a couple of these talks, because there might be some new things that come up. But
all right, some other
so
topics,
teaching music, games in the classroom. I love playing games, and so games and activities like warm-ups.
And so you chose these before you even you wrote out sort of
I wrote these over the summer while I was still in the States.
Right,
absolutely.
Right.
I have another one on teaching pronunciation. So what you can do to teach pronunciation. What else? I have
you
one
literally just scrolled through our. Now, be honest with me. Did you scroll through our podcast to look for ideas?
I didn't scroll through it, but I definitely had things that we had discussed in mind. Absolutely.
Okay, because those are all podcast episodes that we've done.
Right. Another topic I have as well is student-centered classrooms. So how to become more of a facilitator. Because I think especially in Asian cultures, I think the teacher tends to be the knowledge giver and just stands up there and lectures for 2 hours and 15 minutes, whereas... And I told my students on the first day of class, I told all of them that do not expect me to teach the way that your Chinese teachers will, because if you expect that, you're going to be heavily disappointed in my lessons and how I teach. Because
you flipped your chair around, sat backwards in your chair.
That's right.
Listen, guys, I'm not like those other teachers.
That's right. Unbutton the top button of my button down. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. I'm trying to think of other, but those are kind of the main things.
I gotcha.
But you led me to another very important tip, Jared, which is know your audience and be aware of what your audience will want to get. Like, I always try to think of myself as the student when I plan lesson plans. You know, what would I want to learn? What key points are important for me to learn as the student? Because I think it can be easy to get off topic, off task, and talk about other unrelated stuff. So yeah, I would say know your audience is another big tip. And as you mentioned with over-preparedness, I would say you also want to go into it with a level of preparedness. 1, knowing your audience. 2, knowing the time you have allotted to speak. You know, you don't want to plan for an hour and a half and then realize I only have a 45-minute time window to speak and then be rushed the entire time.
Although I would say... Yeah, no, you're right. I misheard you for a second. I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I would say it's always, I used to be a firm believer that it's better to plan more. I have changed that opinion drastically after working in the Czech Republic and even here in China. I think less is more. I think it's better to cover...
Including presentations, though.
Yes. Because I think it's better to have less material and really cover it in depth than cover way too much and just do a brief overview of everything. Now, it depends on what the purpose of your talk is or your speech, but I'm a firm believer in less is more. As a teacher and as a public speaker, I would rather have my audience leaving my speech with really knowing the 1 or 2 or 3 main topics I want them to know than having them glossed over so I can just talk about more stuff.
Yes. That's when I was interviewing for jobs, that was something my dad constantly reminded me about interviews, is that once you've answered the question, stop. Don't like just keep talking for the sake of talking. And I think I bring it up because I think it relates to like the speech thing too. Is like know
absolutely
what it is you're trying to say and say it. And just figure out the most efficient way to make your point, I would say.
Right, absolutely. And another tip,
which we do here all the time with our hour plus episodes.
That's true. I think podcasts are a little different platform, but otherwise we'd have a 20. I don't think we could do a 20-minute episode. We try to do 30-minute travel episodes. We can't even do those. We both just like to talk.
Which, by the way, our East Lansing one, check that one out. It was great.
That's true. But yeah, the other thing I'd like to mention though too is you want to speak with your audience. You don't want to talk at them. Like, I think a lot of people, because one, you're kind of up on a podium or a pedestal, you already think like I am this smart, knowing being, and I'm giving these people information. It's like, I think if you can relate to them more as people, if you can provide anecdotes or stories, that always helps. And I think it's really important to try to speak with your audience and not at them, because I think it can be very condescending. It can be kind of sound very arrogant and egotistical as well.
What sort of visual aids are you allowed to use, if any? Like, are you expected or allowed to make like PowerPoint presentations?
I think it depends on the venue and what you're doing. Me as a teacher, obviously, yes. At a lot of these workshops I'll be giving, I believe so. But I think the other key thing here is if you make a PowerPoint, it should be a visual aid to reinforce important concepts, ideas, main points of your speech. And you shouldn't just be reading off of the slides. It's like, if you're reading off the slides, it's like, why don't you just email me to this and I'll read it myself? Because I can do that a lot quicker than having to listen to you ramble through a PowerPoint that you're just reading off of the slides.
I read somewhere, I'm just telling you what I read somewhere, I don't know if it's right or wrong, that in China and some other Asian countries maybe, especially if it's like... if like it's the person's, not someone's first language, it's not as odd to put more writing on and PowerPoints. Like it's sort of more accepted than it might be here.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I think once again that just reinforces and also gives
your
people
audience
time. Right, exactly. It gives people time to look at stuff, because listening is a difficult skill, and a lot of people have difficulty with listening, especially in a second or third language. And so that leads me to my next tip, though, Jared, and I think this will be my last one, and then we can start talking more about culture as well related to this, to make this a bit more untranslatable-esque. But my last tip would be, it's really important to be aware of your tone, your pronunciation, and your tempo of speech. You don't want to speak too quickly. You don't want to, I hate to say this, but if you have a very thick accent, you might want to try to tone that down a bit. If you can. And then also I would say avoid specific, like very, avoid jargon, avoid terms that people, avoid terms that people only know in your specified field, especially if it's a very wide audience, right? And I even try to do that with my teaching now here in China. I could make my presentations and everything very formal, although I struggle with it and I would have to prepare more to make it very formal. But I try to have it be very clear, concise, and I try to avoid a lot of terms unless they are terms that students need to know to understand the theories or things we're discussing. But I would say and this is kind of funny, but I read this and I agree with it, if a 12-year-old can't understand it, it's likely that someone speaking, if that's their second or third language, they might also not be able to understand it as well. I know it sounds a little harsh, but
that's fair.
It's better to be understood. Yeah.
As someone that has been at one point rather proficient at a second language, I definitely understand that.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
So now let's start. Might be more like a 4-year-old for me in German, but
I think you're a little rough on yourself. But yeah. So let's talk about doing a speech with an intercultural audience or a multicultural audience.
Okay.
I would say the biggest tip that I would give our listeners out there is cultural sensitivity. Be aware of what topics are taboo. What things you can emphasize as well. And I'd like to read a snippet of a. Right. Absolutely what you're wearing and also the gestures you make during your speech. But I would like to check out our body gestures or body language episodes. Right. But I want to read a quick snippet from a speech that Barack Obama gave at Cairo University that I think really shows cultural sensitivity and also a good way to compliment the audience. So here we go. And this was a speech Obama gave in 2009. He says, I quote, "I am honored to be in the timeless city of Cairo and to be hosted by two remarkable institutions."
Hosted by two remarkable...
God damn it, Jay. And to be hosted by two remarkable institutions for over 1,000 years, Al-Azhar has stood as a beacon of Islamic learning, and for over a century, Cairo University has been a source of Egypt's advancement, and together you represent the harmony between tradition and progress. I am grateful for your hospitality and the hospitality of the people of Egypt. I am also proud to carry with me the goodwill of the American people and a greeting of peace from Muslim communities in my country. Assalamu alaikum. Brilliant. So I think this is a great example of cultural sensitivity, especially the fact that Obama closed his opening of the speech with the phrase "Assalamu alaikum," which I think is great. I think, and that also adds to what we do here at the Untranslatable Podcast, which is, if you can, put a couple phrases of the native language of wherever you're going. If you're giving a speech. Are you going to try that? Absolutely. It'll already done it.
Definitely lighten the mood because people will laugh.
Oh, well, trust me, Jared. I've done this in my classes so far. The last few days, I've explained, because we've talked about is language the same as communication, and it's not. And so I talk about how I communicate with people here in China, but I don't use a lot of language. So I use gestures. Right. And then I usually tell the students the whole story with I will point at a menu and say, "Jigga, this." The students crack up. They love it. So absolutely, when you can bring aspects of the local culture and language, it definitely it lightens the mood. And I think it also shows the audience that you're interested in them and their culture, which I think is very important to have this kind of two-way street of, if you're interested to my speech, I should also be interested in your culture and your own philosophies and ideas of this topic.
Yeah. And I think that there is something to showing vulnerability up there too. I think it also, one, it helps relate to the audience, but also two, I think it helps at least personally relax me a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Is a little bit of the vulnerability, and especially like when it's met with laughter or something like that, where it's like, all right, I can relax a little bit. They don't they don't all hate me. Okay, good to know.
Exactly, exactly. And speaking of making them laugh, I would say it's important to use humor very wisely. What I mean by this is make sure, obviously, your jokes are appropriate in the cultural, political, religious context. Right. Probably not. Don't have me be your writer either, because they're going to be too corny and they'll all just be Jaiuses. And then it'll be just crickets in the crowd. But, I think it's also important to be aware that, also using specific language to be humorous may not translate well. It might even just go over the listeners' heads as well. And I would say a good way to test this is if you have any friends or people who know more about the culture where you will be giving the speech, ask them, are these jokes appropriate? That's the best way to do things, I think, is go straight to the source. If you're giving a talk in Japan, if you have any friends or family or anyone who...
Run it by a Japanese person.
Exactly. It's a great way to do that.
Good idea.
And I think that's really important as well. And so avoid, like Jared mentioned earlier, avoid untranslatable phrases and idiomatic expressions unless this is, I think, once again, this goes back to know your audience. If you know these people are going to be well-versed in English and they will probably be able to understand it, you're welcome to try it, but just be aware that it might go over their heads. You might get blank stares and hear crickets. So I think using humor wisely is important. Yes, Jared?
I found an interesting tip for speaking to multicultural audiences regarding being careful with your visuals. So say you do have some sort of visual aid, meaning PowerPoint presentation or video or something like that. Your graphics should be free of any culturally inappropriate images. Right. It's also important to consider color because it can carry different symbolic meanings from culture to culture. For example, red is a high-energy color used as a warning or to elicit feelings of excitement, passion, or even anger in Western cultures, but it is used as a color of mourning in South Africa. Similarly, red represents good fortune where, Chad?
In China.
But can mean anger in Japan. Another example is yellow, which is the color of mourning in Myanmar, Burma, but it's previously known as Burma, I guess I should say. But it signifies happiness and prosperity in the Middle East.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, colors are important, visual aids. And I would say try to avoid anything that could be interpreted or viewed as having some type of political agenda. Or also, I think a lot of speakers from the West come off, I don't think they intend to be this way, but they come off with like this kind of cultural superiority complex where it's like, oh, everything in the West is better than the East. One, that's obviously not true. And two, just be aware that, I don't like to use the terms better or worse when I'm discussing cultural differences because really the key is it's different. It's not really better or worse. Yes. What could be better to you could be significantly worse for someone else, right?
You betcha. I agree with that. I mean, I think that's part of the whole reason why we're here doing this whole podcast thing is because of that, but or at least to get that across. But I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Right.
That's good.
Right. Absolutely. And I would say too, like different sense of humor in different countries. Not only be aware of them, but also just understand that even on a cultural level, people still have a different sense of humor. And I think you want to use humor if you can, but don't overuse it. You don't. Yeah. Because I think there's a fine line between being funny and then catching the interest and captivating your audience and then just being a laughing stock and a clown. And I don't think, unless you're a stand-up comedian, I don't think...
This is a stand-up show.
Exactly. So I want to add a couple interesting cultural body like gestures or body language, Jared, that I think are kind of important to know. So in Colombia, if you show the height of an animal, you actually hold your palm downwards and raise it up. But for people, you will actually have your palm on the edge like this. So you'll go like this. So you'll have Yeah. So basically what that means, though, is if you're comparing heights for some reason of people, maybe you're giving a scientific talk about average heights across the world or something. I have no idea. You don't want to use your palm down going up because that means you're referring people to animals. Exactly. So that's one tip that I thought was really interesting. Another one is you don't want to use in the U.S. when we try to tell someone to come here, we usually will have our palm facing upwards and we bring our index finger in like Jared and I are doing if you're watching on YouTube right now. But here in Asia, that's really, really rude, and you should never beckon someone by doing that. So what you will do is you will, right? I think that's a great word. The way you will do that here in Asia is you have your hand downwards, your palm facing down, and you bring your fingers in like this.
Okay.
So that's what they do for come here.
To me,
it does.
But, if I did it my whole life, I wouldn't.
Right, exactly. So I think being culturally aware of different gestures is a very important thing, especially if you're somebody who talks a lot with your hands as well.
Yes.
So I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Have you have you heard from any of your colleagues that have spent time in China before how any of their speeches have gone?
I have not. I should have asked them. Yeah, I should have asked them. I have not. But I think for the most part. The good thing is, I think there is some leeway if you are a foreigner in a different country. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use that as an excuse to not do your homework.
Don't prepare. Yeah.
Right. But I think on the other hand, too, generally speaking, I think audiences will be a little bit understanding as long as you don't commit a huge cultural faux pas.
Right.
But I think a lot of things, it's just try to use your best common sense if you can and do some research. Now, what's interesting, though, too, Jared, I also want to talk about audience reactions in different cultures because this is also important because you don't want to be giving a speech and think that you either offended someone and you haven't or you're boring the audience to sleep. So what's interesting is, Jared, in Japan, what an audience may do to show that they are concentrating and being attentive is actually by closing their eyes and nodding their head up and down slightly. So to us Westerners, we'd probably think, oh no, we're boring these people to sleep. But I think for them, it's like we're really listening very attentively.
Fully.
Exactly. Whereas in the West, if people are closing their eyes and their heads going up and down, they probably are falling asleep. So I think that's one thing that to keep in mind. Now, applause is another thing that varies from culture to culture. So in the U.S., we generally will applaud at the end of a speech. And sometimes if you really give a riveting speech, people might whistle. Maybe. This has never happened to me, so I clearly have not given any super riveting speeches yet. But in Europe, in many parts of Europe, if you hear whistling, it's actually because of a sign of disapproval.
Oh.
So just be aware of that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right?
So it's like booing.
Right. Yeah, we'll boo in the U.S. Right. But in Europe, in many parts of Europe, they'll actually whistle. So that's kind of interesting.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that. Thankfully, I've never been whistled at.
So would that be the case of like a concert or something too? I wonder.
I'm not so sure about a concert. I think this is more for public speeches, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Right. So what's also interesting too is if you're finishing a speech, if you are speaking in Argentina and you wave goodbye, the members of the audience might all turn around and come back to sit down. To them, the wave means, hey, come back. In other parts of Latin America, the same wave may actually mean no. So keep that in mind as well. Once again, this is more gestures, but I think that's important to keep in mind.
That'd be hilarious.
I think it's always smart to just have like a little closing part of your speech. In general, I don't know if it really varies from culture to culture, but I think it's important to just have some type of closing statement so people know when the speech is over. Because sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are some people that just sort of like end with like the end of presenting the data, essentially. And I think it does help to have like a wrap up.
Right. I would agree. And now I just want to give a couple key points here on the words and the lexicon or terminology. I'm using a fancy word here, lexicon. Terminology of your speech. So obviously you should make sure that you are somewhat aware of what terminology and jargon is going to be well enough known that you can use it, and what is maybe too field specific, so you shouldn't use. But I would also be careful with not only the level of the words, but the pronunciation of them. If it's a difficult word, you might want to repeat it or explain it. That never hurts. And then is that not a struggle to not feel like you're like patronizing people? I think if you do it for every term, then you're definitely patronizing them. But if it's here and there, I think it's okay. Obviously, I'm a little biased as a teacher because I probably over-explain everything because I want to make sure my students understand. But yeah, so I would say also be very careful if you use any translating apps or anything to translate things. Yes. Sometimes if you give a speech in China and the original text is in Chinese characters, I would say just use the Chinese characters. You could have a translation below it, but I would say include the original language and a translation. Because if you only have the translation, if the translation is translated incorrectly, there could be some problems. Or
context is always a little
exactly
bit, like it's always a little easier, even if it's properly translated. There is something to like it being presented in the language that it, like something is lost in the translation.
Right, exactly. And I want to finish this section with a few additional tips. So, do not expect a standing ovation in Australia. Apparently, in Australia, they don't really do that kind of thing. So don't.
Oi, 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 oi.
Right, exactly. So don't expect that. And then in Asian cultures as well, they may not show a ton of excitement, and that's just because they're there to learn, and they're not there to necessarily have fun. Apparently, though, Thais can be an exception to this. They want to have fun while they learn. And then it's also important, too, to be aware of how you refer to yourself. Talking to the gringos, the people from the United States here. If you're giving a speech in Latin America or South America or Central America, I wouldn't refer to yourself as an American. Refer to yourself as a North American, because it's just a cultural difference. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I'm looking like I'm boring Jared here.
No, you're not boring me. I'm listening.
Okay, there we go.
I'm letting you talk for once.
The last thing I would say is in Japanese culture, you don't want to use like kind of humiliating humor. I think that's a way to. It's not well received in American culture. Asian culture, especially Japanese culture. And apparently Japanese people tend to not like humor in seminars. So also know the formality of the event that you are speaking at. However, on the other hand, Australians tend to love humor in speeches. It seems like at least my Chinese students really respond to humor as well, and Thais as well. So keep that in mind. This just all goes back to know your audience. The key is know your audience.
Yes.
But now, Jared, we've talked a lot about public speaking today. I think we should lighten some things up and talk about some great music and get to our song of the pod.
I like this song. It's called Milky Chance, it's called Daydreaming by Milky Chance. Is that what they're called?
Yes, Milky Chance featuring Tosh Sultana. Important to mention.
You found this song, and I would like you to explain it because I like it very much, but I don't really know what genre to put it in.
Jared, it's always problematic when we try to put, especially music like this, in a genre.
Putting in a box. You can't put me in a box.
That's right. Because it is definitely it spans across a lot of genres. But before I get to that, Jared, I just want to mention, so Milky Chance is a group. I believe they are a trio. There are 3 people in the group, and they're from Kassel, Germany. And Tosh Sultana, they are from Australia, Melbourne, Australia. And I say they because Tosh identifies as non-binary, and the pronoun that they prefer is they. So I'm trying to be respectful of their pronouns here. And so Tosh Sultana has been kind of referred to as a one-person band. They will use a lot of different loop stations, and Tosh is able to play a lot of really amazing different types of instruments. I believe over like 15 or 20 instruments. And so they collaborated on the track Daydreaming. And it has, and now we'll get to the kind of different pieces of genre here, Jared. I would say there's definitely an electronic vibe to it. But there's also, I would say I would say if I were to just put it into two genres, I would say electronic and indie would be my two genres.
Okay.
Also, maybe some bits and pieces of alternative.
Okay.
But the song itself, it's just great. I really love the collaboration between Milky Chance and Tash Sultana.
Yeah,
and
me too.
It's got a great hook, great lyrics, great vibe, great feel. It's awesome. It's just fantastic.
I agree with all those things. I really like it. Man, I was gonna say I'd be interested to find more from them, but I didn't realize it was two people like working together. So like, it's not likely that there's gonna be a whole bunch of music with them together.
Correct, but that just means you'll have to check out Milky Chance on their own and Tash Sultana on their own.
That's true.
Which I will tell you,
two new artists instead of just one.
Exactly. And it's a great song. I think it's definitely a song to give a listen. If I would say this is a really perfect like in the morning kind of getting ready for the day, like puts you in a good mood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been a big fan of Milky Chance for a while actually, and then I was trying to think of because I was about to refer to Colors to try to find an international artist, and I was like, oh wait, isn't Milky Chance from Germany? But they do all. The reason why I couldn't think of it was because they do all their songs in English. I don't think they have a single German song.
Interesting. That's such an interesting decision to make.
Right.
And it's like, well, I wonder what the thought process is behind that.
Yeah,
because there could be so many different like angles to take it from, business-wise or musically,
Well, and I've been told by a lot of people that English just lends itself well to lyric writing and poetry, which very well could be. And I think though, on that same vein though, I think German does as well. I think there's some really amazing German songwriters and German poetry out there as well. So I'm really not sure. But yeah, it's a great song though. Check it out on our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast.
You betcha.
The song is Daydreaming by Milky Chance featuring Tash Sultana. So it's a great song, great vibes. Listen to it, and we guarantee it'll put you in a good mood or bring a smile to your face. So as our listeners should be well aware by now, we are a podcast to promote language learning, and I've been slowly but surely learning Chinese, baby step by baby step. And I have a new Chinese word of the pod today, and it is yongqi. Wait, sorry, I said that wrong. Had the tone went the wrong way. Sorry. So it's yongqi. Sorry, that's a lowering tone or dropping tone, the last tone. And it means courage. It means courage. And I chose this one, Jared, because I think for a lot of people, you need to summon a lot of courage to be able to speak publicly.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Yeah. My Spanish word of the pod is my Spanish word of the pod. I don't want to say I'm still committed to learning Spanish. I am in theory, but it's hard because false identidad is disgusting, and I really need some sort of media to take in, you know.
Music, my man, music.
Yeah, that's true. I think I just have I don't really fully believe that I can learn a language through music.
I want to make a believer out of you, Jared.
So my Spanish word of the pod is more of a Spanish phrase of the pod, and it's pánico esquencio.
Something about panic.
Esquénico.
Which
pánico
means what?
esquénico.
And
esquénico. Okay. It's a stage fright.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, and I think a lot of people suffer from stage fright.
Have you ever?
Do you suffer from stage fright, Jared?
Nah, I think I'm I might get anxious, but I think I'm pretty good at keeping it under wraps.
Okay.
Have you ever? I feel like you don't, especially as a teacher. You just have so much practice doing this stuff.
Right.
Have you ever?
I never did really.
Have you ever witnessed stage fright though?
Yeah, and it breaks my heart, and it's my students. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, okay, that's different. If it was classmates, that might be funny, but it is kind of sad if you see it happen in a student.
Right,
I could get that.
And I've seen people, with
especially
all
when
sorts
you know
of
they can
different
do
kinds
it
of stage
too.
fright. Right. Yeah. But I think really a lot of it's just in our own heads. I think a lot of times we are our own biggest limiter.
Yeah.
You know.
as someone that is, well, I've been getting a little lazy recently, but as someone that's spent a lot of time learning piano, I can definitely agree that one of the biggest things holding me back is like myself mentally.
Right. Which I
and
find
like
interesting
what I believe
too.
I can do rather than, doing it.
Absolutely. Which I find interesting too, because you have a great ear for music and you've played music in the past and you can sing. I've heard you sing and I know you can carry a tune.
Thank you.
So you have I think the thing is too with music though, maybe this should be a future episode, who knows, but I think in one way or another we all have music within us. Whether or not you can sing and can carry a tune is different. But I think we all understand basic concepts like rhythm, melody, tone, things like this. So yeah. But that's another talk for another time. But good Spanish word of the pod, Jared. I really like
Thanks,
it.
buddy.
And I decided today I'd do something a little different because we're talking about public speaking. I tried to find some funny quotes instead of just corny jokes for today. I have some funny or interesting quotes about public speaking.
Okay.
So here we go. So this one comes from JFK, John F. Kennedy. Public speaking is the art of diluting a 2-minute idea with a 2-hour vocabulary.
I've definitely experienced those presentations too, where I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds good.
Right. And then another funny one here is the secret. This is related to success, but I think this also applies to public speaking. The secret of success is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you've got it made.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, I think that was pretty funny.
That's really what I feel like I'm doing a lot of times when I give speeches. Like, especially is like when you asked me if I had stage fright. I was like, I feel like I do inside, but most of my energy does go to making it seem like I'm calm up there.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Another good one that I like, and I don't know who this quote is from. It doesn't say. But, oh wait, is it? No, never mind. I think it's Winston Churchill. Yeah, I think this is Winston Churchill. So here we go. Now I've been told that a successful speech needs to have a great introduction and a memorable ending, and that both of these should both be close together with not too much in between. So ladies and gentlemen, to reiterate what King Henry said to each of his many wives, I shall not keep you long.
Oh my gosh.
I thought that was pretty funny.
That's a good one. I like that one too.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. So there are a couple funny quotes from speeches for everybody here, and we hope you enjoyed. But now moving on, an extra quote for you. And Jared, usually I come up with these off the top of the dome, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm changing it up because I really love this quote, and I think this does sum up a lot of what we've said today. Here, I'll give my 2 cents here. Know your audience. That's going to be my recapping quote for this episode. Just know your audience, whether it's culturally, linguistically, know your audience. But my quote today comes from Dorothy Sarnoff, who said, make sure that you have finished speaking before your audience has finished listening.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
It's really good, isn't it? That's why I wanted to have that be our closing quote of the pod today.
Yeah, that's good. And I agree. I hope we did that today here on this episode.
I hope so. And I hope we do that every episode. Yeah. All other 125 of them, including today's. Well, good. Well, this has been a fun episode, and we hope you've enjoyed and have been able to pull some useful tips about public speaking in general and to different audiences.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your support here at the Untranslatable Podcast. It means the world to us. And if there's anything you'd like us to discuss, or you happen to have any stories or untranslatables, let us know at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com.
You betcha.
If you're curious about what Jinan looks like, you can check out our Instagram page, Untranslatable Podcast, as well. And there are all sorts of good clips and other pictures up there as well. And if you are curious about Jared's wit, you can check out our Twitter page, Untranslatable1, the number 1. And lastly, please, 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Let us know how we can make this podcast even better for you. So as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, Děkujeme, muchas gracias, and shisha.